Hello and welcome to episode 6 of I'm Sinspired. I'm Sinspired is created where I invite guests from different career backgrounds to tell you their stories with the ultimate goal to inspire you to pursue your passions. And today I have a special guest with me today, a director of finance. Say hello.
Hello, good morning, everybody.
Great. So tell us, what do you do for a living and how you got into it?
I'm currently director of finance at a manufacturing company. I went to Penn State University. Originally, I wanted to study engineering. At some point, I switched to energy business and finance, which was through the Smeal College of Business and also the College of Earth and Mineral Sciences. And it was really focused on energy industry. But ultimately, I found a job out of school. My first internship was a cost accounting internship with Tyco Electronics, so a connectors manufacturing company. I just kind of followed that path throughout my career and progressed through finance and accounting, and had a couple of job changes, couple of moves across the country, and ultimately I landed where I am today. In any aspect of business, I think is something that I'm interested in. It's kind of just been my niche where I've worked over the past 10 years. I've worked for 3 separate companies, had probably 5 different bosses. Just being a good partner with my colleagues, a good finance partner with my colleagues ultimately led me to where I am today. Good working relationships with the people I work with, generally a positive attitude towards work helps keep everyone motivated and heading towards the same goal, I think has led to my success in my career.
So is there anything in specific that you can tell us that you are currently working on?
So actually, they just moved me from one business segment to another. As they did that, there was another guy that was let go to the one that I then moved into. It's kind of been crazy, actually. I'm sure anyone who works in a career, you'll find that there's all kinds of things going around the business that you don't understand so much or why. And there's all kinds of changes that led me to where I'm at today. When I took my first director role, it was my boss at the time that decided to leave the company and go work for a private company as a CFO. So that led to my promotion to director. When I was first hired at this company, there was another gentleman who was controller of one of the acquisition entities, and he was let go, and that led to my taking on that role. I've kind of just been filling in gaps along the way, and they've kind of just been putting me to wherever they need me. And I've always kind of just been open to whatever opportunities they want to give me. I'm happy to contribute to the team and I'm open to it. I think there's times when it's tough and it's like you see people getting cut and it's like, why am I not getting cut, or why do they deserve that? But ultimately, you just stay focused on what the company's goals are and you stay aligned to that. We have a term that we use at work these days. It's you're either above the line or you're below the line. It's pretty evident when you're below the line that your days are numbered. So it's important to stay above the line, to stay aligned with the company's goals, and to foster that positive mindset with the team and wanting to make the company better. I think that's what's led to my progression into this role over the past 4 years.
Yeah, it sounds like you've always been a high performer and you always kept an open mind. Whenever certain opportunities opened, you really took advantage of them when they came up. And
Yeah,
that significantly led to your very fast career progression.
yeah, and it wasn't so much that I had to take advantage of anything. It was I just had to say yes. I'm definitely am invested in my work. It's not always a 40-hour work week. It can be totally flexible, and sometimes it might be a lot more to get the job done. For example, last week there was something that somebody threw at me 5 p.m. on a Friday, and they were panicked and they were needing help. And I was like, okay, let's buckle up and get this done, because I understood the urgency of it, the importance of it. And I think it's doing things like that, being willing to kind of step up when you need to, that the company values. Be open to the dynamics of work. Sometimes when it's really fast paced, to try to keep up and to get to the finish line is ultimately the goal. You want to make sure that you're delivering on whatever it is that your job is committed to delivering.
Thank you for sharing. Now let's
Yeah.
move to the next question. What inspired you to pursue a career in finance?
I guess when I was first going into the finance curriculum at school, the reason that I chose my major was because I was interested in energy and the environment. This was kind of a new major. It was something that was unique and interesting to me, which is ultimately why I chose it. Going back even further before school, my parents were actually both finance majors. And, when I was very young age, I was thinking about coupons and saving and being frugal, making that dollar last. I always kind of had that finance mindset mindset from an early age just because my parents really instilled that in me. And I didn't even realize it at the time until getting into my career. It's like, this is just how I lived my life before, before I got to this point, looking for savings opportunities and driving productivity and getting the most value out of every dollar. Yeah, that's ultimately, I think, what led me into my major choice, which was coupled with doing good things for the planet. That ultimately led me to my first job in accounting. My major actually didn't have any real accounting curriculum. There was one accounting class that I had in my entire major. So when I got my first internship and it was cost accounting, I was a little bit worried that I was going to get revealed.
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I totally had imposter syndrome, but at the same time, I was going into that job with a really good mentor. He had been at the company for 40 plus years and was planning to retire. So it was like an opportunity for me to join and learn from him. Accounting's not hard. It was something I could learn. And actually in school, it was probably my worst grade that I had gotten. I had gotten a C in that class. I was definitely worried that I wasn't going to get it. And probably going into the internship, there was probably a couple of months where I was still kind of, what's a debit, credit? Which way is this charge going? I stayed committed to it. And yeah, ultimately I learned it. Early at this company, I was doing a controller's job. So very, very heavy accounting, month-end close stuff, full cycle accounting. Now I manage multiple sites. I have multiple controllers reporting to me. It's a skill that I've gained over my career. Ultimately, what led me into that, I think, is my parents, my interest in just, the energy field and the planet. And here I am in manufacturing. So it's like not even related, but just always had an interest in business in general. Probably, I have my parents to thank for getting me into that mindset at an early age, which has allowed me to excel in my career.
Yeah, you mentioned a really good point. You mentioned that you didn't do well on that one accounting class, but you end up doing so well in your career. And I think that's an important point, which is even though if you don't do well in school for something that you may be good at or enjoy doing, you can still be successful in your career if you're willing to put in that effort to learn, continue to learn, and also work with other mentors. Because there are a lot of people out there that will help you in your career. Like you're not alone in having to do this.
Yeah, and I think early on too in school, there's all these other classes that I was taking, right? So it wasn't just accounting that I was focused on at the time. My focus was other places, and accounting kind of got pushed to the side. Once you're in a career and you're living and breathing that every single day, your speed of learning is a lot faster. And also having resources around at the company. It wasn't just my colleague who was helping me learn, but the whole department and across the whole company. There's a lot of people that have a good understanding of whatever it is that you're thrown into. Even in that role and throughout my roles, I'm always kind of looking to build my network, finding resources at the company that I can turn to when I have questions. And finance is a lot of that. We don't usually have the answers, but we know where to find the answers.
Yeah, so you mentioned this challenge as an intern. Are there any other challenges that you encountered to get to where you are today? And if so, how did you overcome them?
At one point in the first company I was working for, kind of ran out of room to grow. I came to this point where my challenge was, do I continue in this role and stay put, or do I take a position back in Pennsylvania, where I was originally from, in their headquarters and grow there, or do I find a new job out here on the West Coast? Ultimately, that's what I decided, to find a new job out here on the West Coast. I worked at that place for a few years. I had gotten one promotion, and all of a sudden they let me go. I had no idea what was going on. That was a challenging time because it wasn't my decision, right? It was the company's decision. And finding that next job proved to be the best thing for my career. Change throughout your career is going to be a constant. It's going to be the only thing that you can rely on, is that things are going to change. As long as you're looking up to what's next and you're heading in that upward direction and that mindset that this is a good building block for me. Each one of those changes, that was kind of the focus, is like, how do I use this to grow? Whether you're leaving a company at will or they're telling you that you have to leave, there's a lot of experience that comes from that. If you're one of those job hoppers, you change every 2 years. It doesn't look great on your resume to be hopping around so much, but I'm sure that you gain a lot of experience that way because you're getting so much exposure to different industries, different cultures of work, different work partners. So every stage along the way was challenging, but also helped me get to where I am today.
I know that you worked several years in a particular role, and once you ramp up, then you're able to really contribute more to the team and actually grow in the career that way.
Probably my progression at my current job is because a lot of the jobs that I've had are the same job, but just at different levels. Most recently, I was in charge of our acquisition businesses that were producing stuff for specific industries. And now I'm in kind of like a different industry, but also an acquisition business. So it's like, how do we get those acquisition businesses aligned with the rest of the company and operating the same way in terms of how we're forecasting and budgeting and planning and looking at capital investments or productivity initiatives. It's a lot of the same stuff, but previously it was a $300 million business and now it's a $500 million business. And previously it was 4 plants and now it's 10 plants. It's the same stuff, but my role has expanded.
Tell us about the qualifications that one would need to get a similar position as yours. So this can be education or work experience or anything else that you can do to prepare for it.
Having just at least a credential on your resume saying that, yeah, you've had some higher education is really all you need. I haven't had any further education beyond my bachelor's. I spent 3.5 years at university getting that and haven't gone back since. So no MBA, no master's or anything like that. A lot of just work experience. I'd say in my position at currently, there's different foundations within the accounting and finance world at a company. You may have heard of like these rotation programs that companies offer where you rotate 6 months or 3 months or 8 months in different roles within a certain discipline. For accounting and finance, some of the what we call crucible roles, right? Like the foundational roles of accounting and finance are just straight up accounting, book month close, internal audit, going around auditing different areas of the business and poking around different controls. FP&A, so forecasting and planning and analysis. Treasury is a separate function. So I've kind of had different experiences and different roles that are considered crucible roles that gave me that broad finance and accounting experience. If you look at like a CFO of a company, typically they'll have different roles within finance and accounting at a company. They may even have like a GM role or some general management role, or they could even have a stint in marketing or different areas of the business.
And what would the interview process look like? How would one prepare for such interviews?
Interviews will always be different at any company. It just depends on the hiring managers and HR and what they think is important. You might have the same job that you're interviewing at two different companies and the interviews will look totally different. They might be more interested in how you perform working with other people versus very focused on just working on your own. Ultimately, preparing yourself for an interview is just having a good understanding of your background and then applying that to the job that you're looking into and how you can add value to that company, because ultimately anybody that's hiring for a position, they want somebody to come in and do a good job. So how are you going to be that person? And how are you going to communicate that with the interviewing team? You might be interviewing with different teammates because they just want to see if you're going to fit culturally versus job performance.
Are there any specific questions that you remember or you would ask candidates?
One I always like to ask is like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I like to understand where their head is at in terms of, do they want to grow? Do they want to just be an expert in this job? You always get a different answer. It's always interesting to hear what people aspire to or whether they just happy to stay in that role.
How about questions that are related to finance? They really want to test your finance knowledge, your textbook knowledge.
Back when I first started my career, there was one director of finance at the time. And he had, he would ask like, okay, we sell something. What's the accounting entry, right? There could be like technical questions like that. I would have failed it at the time. I had no idea. There could be technical questions. It just depends on your job. If you're going to be booking sales entries all day, then that's obviously going to be something that you're going to need to know how to do. What it comes down to is how are you going to provide value in that role? And if you think about it from the perspective of the manager wants to hire somebody that makes their job job easier, propels their career. Typically, one of the answers that I provide when I'm talking about my 3 to 5 year plan, my goal is to have you grow in your career, and I'm following you. If you're in that position as a hiring manager, that's kind of what you're looking for. You want somebody who's going to come in, do a great job, help make your job easier, help your organization thrive. So really thinking about when you're going in an interview is, if you were in the other seat, what exactly would you be looking for and what would you value as a hiring manager?
Great. Thanks for your insights. Our discussion about finance wouldn't be complete without talking about money. So, what is the expected salary range that one can expect to make in a finance role?
When I first started, my salary was around $44,000 a year. So that was in an entry level accounting position. Up to this point, probably the range is somewhere between like 150 to 250. In finance, your job scope depends a lot on what your responsibility is. So for example, if you're working at a plant that, does $10 million a year in sales, that's a very small level of responsibility. So you could be CFO of that company, but because it's such a small company, your pay will be dependent on how big that company is, versus if you're a CFO at a $1 billion business, obviously that's a lot more responsibility and you've got a lot more, you probably have a very large organization under you. It matters about how many direct reports you have, what the scope of the business is that you're responsible for. There's a lot of salary guides that are out there. So Robert Half is a staffing firm for accounting and finance, and they provide salary guides that talk you through, these are all the different functions in accounting and finance, and these are the expected salary ranges. And then these are the adjustments that you should make if you are in a different geography, for example, like San Francisco versus Kentucky. Adjustments that you'll make if it's $100 million a year business versus a $500 million a year business. There's different bonuses too. Companies will have a manager's bonus or equity bonuses. There's like a management incentive plan. They call it a MIP. A lot of companies have this, and it's to align everyone's goals and making sure that all the managers are working towards the same goal. Typically, it's like 20 to 30%. If you over deliver, it can be even double that. Once you get into like a VP level position, now you're getting stock grants and stuff like that. You could even have stock grants that are given to you at an entry level position too, just to align everybody and motivation to grow the value of the company. So there's a lot of things that can play into it besides just your salary.
It's similar to tech, where there's three components: the base pay, the bonus, and also the stock. But like you said, it depends on how big of the company is. So that determines how much they would offer in each of these categories.
Yeah. And for example, like you could be working for Facebook when they're first starting up, and you might not get paid really any salary, but you're relying on those stock options to become valuable in the future. And that might be all they can afford to pay. It's a creative way to compensate employees that doesn't cost a lot for the company, at least at the time. There's different structures. So you really have to just decide what is good for you and what you need. Maybe a base salary is really important because you have a lot of bills that you need to make sure you can cover. You'll probably find something online because there's a lot of staffing agencies that have a really good perspective of all the different jobs that are out there and what people are getting hired into and at what rates. So those are always good things to study if you're changing jobs or looking for a new job, is, what's the expected range? Make sure you're aligned with that range.
What can be better about your job?
Oh man, in accounting and finance, month-end close is a thing. It's something that you can't escape. It's this routine monthly process that we go through to close the books and reconcile the results with what our planned results were, and explaining all that keeps me back from a lot of my friends want to go to some place, but they're going during a month-end close period. Well, I can't go during month-end close. I have to work. That's one thing about the finance and accounting industry, that if you're working on a public company, it's always going to be this routine monthly process that you're going to have to buckle down. During that time, you're not really available for anything else. That limited flexibility is one thing that I would love to change. But I think even as you get higher in your career, like this monthly close cycle becomes more relevant to your job anyways. If we could all just work at private companies and have 2-week close cycles and reconcile the books once a year, that would be nice.
So that's why you're available now. It's the beginning of a new month.
And it's the weekend. My controllers, they just closed the books last week. So we just got through that close cycle. Now at my level, I'm working through the close, but also now I've got like a heavy week of reporting to management, working with all my partners to explain the results and where we plan to go. It's kind of like a 2-week process. You're going to have to buckle down for close.
Wow. So if you work on these 2 weeks every month, then that's a significant chunk of your job in general. to close the books every month?
Yeah, so we're down to like 4 day close now, but then there's a lot of accounting stuff that you have to do outside of that, like reconciling your bank accounts. That takes a couple days, and then reporting results and variances. And then you're right back into forecasting the next month. It's kind of nice to have the routine, but it also kind of stinks to have to be tied down like that because, yeah, there's really no escaping it.
Do you have to do this on a quarterly basis, an annual basis as well?
The monthly closes are a little bit less rigorous than the quarterly closes because there are certain entries that we'll post on a quarterly basis that don't get posted on a monthly basis. And also on a quarterly basis, that's where we're providing reports to Wall Street. So those have more weight and there's more reconciling and more accounting entries that you need to do on a quarterly basis. And then same thing on an annual basis. There's a little bit more rigor on an annual basis.
And what do you like most about your job? What is it that you find most rewarding?
What I like most about my job is probably just the view that I get on the whole business. I always describe my role in the company as kind of like, in terms of baseball, as the catcher on the baseball field. We can see the whole field. We're in every play. We're calling out to the team what the current status is, right? If there's a guy on first and second, watch out for third base or 2 outs. We need this last out to close the inning. And I've always liked having that whole view of the whole business and working with the team to kind of call things out and ultimately, hopefully, getting the team aligned and driving towards that same goal. Very, very early in my career, I kind of wanted to do more general management. So this kind of gives me that ability to kind of do those things, but, in my lane. In terms of what is most rewarding about it, when things click and when you hit your numbers, if we deliver the results that we expected, that we communicated, we don't get any questions. And that's always a rewarding feeling, that you did a good job.
Even better if it exceeds your forecasts. That's the best
Even,
case.
even then, you're going to have some stuff to explain. It's always better to exceed than to miss. But if you're exceeding, the company's not expecting those results. So, for example, if we're downsizing the company and one area of the business is performing way better than what they expected, maybe we didn't need to make such drastic cuts. Performing to what you're committing to is really important because that might protect other areas of the business too. If they know that you're stronger than what you're saying, or it kind of goes both ways. It has a ripple effect on the whole business. So if you're over in one area and down in another area and those two balance out, that's great. But if we knew that we would be a little bit over or a little bit under and forecasted it that way, like even better.
Do you have any side hustles that you want to share with us today?
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, I started doing couch surfing, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with couch surfing, but it's a pay it forward model where you can stay on somebody's couch as you're traveling. Well, really, the idea is that you host people on your couch and you get some reviews and some credentials saying, like, yeah, you've supported this community. And then now you can go travel and stay on other people's couches. And it's just a pay it forward model. So it's pretty cool. So when I first moved out to the West Coast, I started doing that. And not long after, I found out about Airbnb. So instead of hosting people in my 1 bedroom apartment on the couch, I started sleeping on the couch and letting people book my room.
So reverse.
Yeah. And, that led into doing more with Airbnb. It's paid for my rent, it helped me buy my first house. And once I moved into my first house, I started Airbnb-ing all the bedrooms in my house, which paid for my mortgage. That has grown. Now I have an LLC. And, we have a website where you can book directly. Back in the day, I was only on Airbnb. Now I'm on Airbnb and booking.com and VRBO and all these other ones, along with my own direct website. And I have 3 properties now that I do short-term rentals. Early in my Airbnb days, I was the house cleaner, I was the customer service agent, I was the marketing, I was all these things. And it was at a smaller scale. But as I've developed this over time, everything's automated. All the communication is just automated with the guest. I have someone I use on Odesk to do my marketing. I have a cleaning crew that does the cleaning. I have a maintenance man that if I need help with maintenance, I'll call him up. So everything's kind of managed. I don't have to spend as much time on the business anymore, but it's also grown. So having that ability to manage out these tasks has helped me scale it. There are people in my area that have really grown their Airbnb short-term rental businesses and have like 80 properties on the beach. They have a whole warehouse that's full of beddings and art and just decorations. But I have like a little closet in my house that, supports my 3 rentals. So it's cool to see how that can scale and know that there's even more room for growth there.
Wow, yeah, looks like sleeping on the couch yourself has really paid off over the years. You certainly did all the grunt work yourself in the early stages to now today you can enjoy living off of the passive income. Where can someone take a look at some of these Airbnbs that you have?
Yeah, so you call them Airbnbs, I call them short-term vacation rentals. And it's kind of really the term that has been adopted. We have a direct booking website. We also have social media that we run promotions with 10% off discounts here and there. The direct booking website is www.rrvacay.com. It's like rest and relax vacation. And vacay is spelled Vacay.
So if you like it, be sure to check out the link in the description below. What advice would you have for someone who is currently pursuing a career that is similar to yours in finance?
One of the most important things I think is having a good manager and the people that you work with. My advice would be find a job that you like, but more importantly, find a manager that you like, especially early in your career. Having a good manager is going to be so important, more than you realize. Definitely focus on the people aspect of it more so than what company you're working for, what kind of business they're doing. It's going to be way more important to have a good manager and a mentor, somebody to guide you along the way and to support you and promote you if you're doing well.
Now, let's say you have a second chance in your life. Would you pursue the same career path?
Maybe I would. Maybe I would like to work more for smaller companies that are doing more like startup type companies. That's something I was always interested in, but never really found an opportunity that suited me. But if I had a second chance, yeah, maybe I would just kind of start working in more of like the startup world or within private equity, smaller companies and private companies. Or I would go be an airline pilot, one of the two.
Oh, how come you want to work for smaller companies and startups?
I think your role within smaller companies is broader, might wear many different hats. So I really like to have my hands on different parts of the business and to see and understand how the whole business operates. So I think working at a smaller company, similar to where I'm at today, everybody's running and grab onto the boat and hopefully the tide is rising and you're going to rise with the tide and grow with that company. I think it's a faster paced environment that would have been more interesting to me early in my career.
And you also mentioned you would have been an airline pilot otherwise. Why is that?
Yeah, I think it's just something I've always been interested in, and I've never really followed that passion because I've been busy with other things. But as I'm getting older and later in my life, it's like something I want to revisit again, getting a pilot license and flying. I always thought it would be really cool to be a pilot growing up. I've always been interested in like motorcycles and things that go fast, flying and planes and skydiving and all those things. I see that as just totally different world. I could see myself going down that path. The curiosity of the unknown is where I'm thinking like, oh, I would like to explore that.
Is there anything else you would like to say to our audience?
No matter what career you choose, no matter what job you choose or which company you choose to work with or whoever manager, you choose to work with, the thing that's always been the most important in my career is being positive and having a can-do attitude. That's the value there for the company. You can't quantify it, but having that mentality, sharing that positivity with the team, there's definitely going to be times where it's going to be difficult. But if you can have that positive light on things and share that with others, it makes things a lot easier. It makes things just better. People are going to enjoy working with you and they're going to be more open to sharing things with you. Just maintaining a positive attitude, I think, is really a key work trait. And you'll notice anytime you work with anybody, say you're going to a McDonald's drive-through, for example, and somebody kind of just has a bad attitude versus somebody's really happy, upbeat, it just makes that whole experience better. So in a work environment where you're spending a lot of time with people, having a positive attitude is going to make that difference for the team.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, we've reached the end of the show today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights about what it means to work in the finance industry. You've definitely shared a lot of advice, especially about having a can-do attitude when it comes to working in finance, and also to really look for a good boss early in your career so that he or she can help you progress throughout. So if you enjoy content like this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to stay up to date with new videos, and check out my page for more content on how to grow your mindset. You've been Sinspired today.